reading from 1 Kings. Then the Lord said to Elijah, "Go, return on your way to the wilderness of Damascus. When you arrive, you shall anoint Hazael as king over Aram. Also you shall anoint Jehu, son of Nimshi, as king over Israel. And you shall anoint Elisha, son of Shaphat, of Abel-Meholah, as prophet in your place." So he set out from there and found Elisha, son of Shaphat, who was plowing. There were 12 yoke of oxen ahead of him, and he was with the 12. Elijah passed by him and threw his mantle over him. He left the oxen, ran after Elijah, and said, "Let me kiss my father and my mother, and then I will follow you." Then Elijah said to him, "Go back again, for what have I done to you?" He returned from following him, took the yoke of oxen, and slaughtered them, using the equipment from the oxen. He boiled their flesh and gave it to the people, and they ate. Then he set out and followed Elijah and became his servant. The word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
Who will read Psalm 16 responsibly? Protect me, O God, for I take refuge in you. I have said to the Lord, "You are my Lord, my good above all other."
All my life is endowed forever in the land, upon those who are noble among the people.
But those who run after other gods shall have their troubles multiplied.
I will not pour out drink offerings to such gods, never take their names on my lips.
O Lord, you are my portion and my cup. It is you who uphold my lot.
My boundaries flows to God's land. Indeed, I have a rich inheritance.
I will bless the Lord who gives me counsel. My heart teaches me night after night.
I have set the Lord always before me, because God is at my right hand. I shall not be shaken.
My heart therefore is glad, and my spirit rejoices. My body also shall rest in hope.
For you will not abandon me to the grave, nor let your Holy One see the pit.
You will show me the path of life. In your presence there is fullness of joy, and in your right hand are pleasures forevermore. A reading from Galatians. For freedom Christ has set us free. Stand firm, therefore, and do not submit again to a yoke of slavery. For you were called to freedom, brothers and sisters. Only do not use your freedom as an opportunity for self-indulgence, but through love become slaves to one another. For the whole law is summed up in a single commandment: you shall love your neighbor as yourself. If, however, you bite and devour one another, take care that you are not consumed by one another. Live by the Spirit, I say, and do not gratify the desires of the flesh. For what the flesh desires is opposed to the Spirit, and what the Spirit desires is opposed to the flesh. For these are opposed to each other to prevent you from doing what you want. But if you are led by the Spirit, you are not subject to the law. Now the works of the flesh are obvious: fornication, impurity, licentiousness, idolatry, sorcery, enmities, strife, jealousy, anger, quarrels, dissensions, factions, envy, drunkenness, carousing, and things like these. I am warning you, as I warned you before. Those who do such things will not inherit the kingdom of God. By contrast, the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, generosity, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. There is no law against such things, and those who belong to Christ Jesus have crucified the flesh with its passions and desires. If we live by the Spirit, let us also be guided by the Spirit. The word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
set his face to go to Jerusalem, and he sent messengers ahead of him. On their way, they entered a village of the Samaritans to make ready for him. But they did not receive him, because his face was set towards Jerusalem. When his disciples, James and John, saw it, they said, "Lord, do you want us to command fire to come down from heaven and consume them?" But he turned and rebuked them. Then they went on to another village. As they were going along the road, someone said to him, "I will follow you wherever you go." And Jesus said to him, "Foxes have holes, and birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head." To another he said, "Follow me." But he said, "Lord, first let me go and bury my father." But Jesus said to him, "Let the dead bury their own dead. But as for you, go and proclaim the kingdom of God." Another said, "I will follow you, Lord, but let me first say farewell to those at my home." Jesus said to him, "No one puts a hand to the plow and looks back is fit for the kingdom of God." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, O Christ.
Please be seated. Lord, do you want us to call down fire from heaven on those folks we don't like and consume them? Oh boy, you know what? How many times have we had people we don't care for, and we've said, "Boy, Lord, send down your fire and consume them." Maybe you haven't quite used those words exactly like that, but I must admit the desire is sometimes still there, because I imagine that if we are honest, at least a few of us here have had people that at one time or another say, "Lord, just consume them. I don't like them. Burn them up because they are evil." It's interesting that two of Jesus' closest disciples, James and John, are the ones who have this request. They are asking permission to destroy an entire town. James and John were upset about what had happened to Jesus there. We're in a section in the Gospel of Luke where changes are taking place. Jesus has moved from that warm and fuzzy time of healing to the time his eyes are now set on the cross. He knows what his mission is, and he is laser focused. He knows his crucifixion is inevitable. So whenever you hear these words, Jesus has set his eyes on Jerusalem. It happens in all of the four Gospels. Know that Jesus' mission has changed, and things now become very focused on Jesus making it to the cross. Let's say he's changed from the warm and fuzzy parts of ministry where he was healing and teaching. Those first things that he did in the Gospels, he transferred there to the demanding and costly reality of what it means to follow Jesus, to be a devoted disciple. And in this short section of the Gospel of Luke, we get a glimpse of what true discipleship is like, and it isn't easy. Jesus had just gone through the Samaritan village, and from what I can understand from history is that Jesus and the Samaritans got along fairly well. Maybe weren't best of friends, but they respected one another. But on this day, for some reason, the welcome was not too warm. We don't know what happened. Luke doesn't tell us what transpired there. But whatever it was, James and John are taken aback. They are offended. Should we call down fire, Lord, and destroy that whole town? Because calling down fire is like asking God himself to condemn these people to mortal judgment. It's a bold request. James and John are asking to be the judge and the executor. I'm afraid that James and John are not the first nor the last to ask God to judge on their behalf. And I'm afraid that we might fall into that trap in some way. This week I saw a little cartoon, and in the first panel, we see the Apostle Paul, who is sitting in prison, and he is writing, "Without Christ, I am nothing." Paul was declaring he owes everything to Christ. And in the second panel is a preacher declaring, "Without Christ, you are nothing." That small change from the humbleness of "I am nothing" to that bold condemnation, "you are nothing," is enormous. God asks us to be humble. It's almost like saying, "Get Christ in your life or fire from heaven will come down." And I don't think that's what Jesus asks of us. He asks us to follow him, that Christ will lead us. He says, "Follow me," which is the costly part of being a disciple. In some ways, Jesus is almost over the top when he says, "No, you can't say goodbye to your family. No, you can't bury your dead." But he's making a point that following him is demanded. Staying focused on love and not on judgment is very demanding. It takes a great commitment. I was trying to think of a couple of illustrations, kind of imagine this. Jesus uses one of those. He says, if you have the plow and you keep turning back, you are not worthy to follow me. So think about that. It's nice to know what's going on with your plow back there. But if you're always turning around, I imagine that steering wheel is always kind of going the other direction. And next thing you know, you plow the field just all over the place with no rhyme or reason. You need to stay focused on what is ahead. Or if you think of the baseball player, if you've ever played ball or ever coached a little league team, you always tell your players, watch your coaches. If you watch the major leaguers, I think they forget that all the time. They seldom pay attention to their coaches. But think about that. You're going to steal a base. How many times do you see that runner look over his shoulder to see what the catcher is doing, and they lose a half a step, and that made the difference between being safe or out? Or if they're running towards third base, and they're turning their back to see what the outfielder is doing, rather than watching the coach, they will oftentimes not end up in a very good situation. Jesus says, don't look back. Commit to what you are doing. Now I realize that I'm not the best example here, because I must admit that God had been tapping me on the shoulder for much of my life. God had been tapping me for a long time before I went to seminary. And I told myself, yeah, let me finish this, Lord. Let me do that first. I always had an excuse. I was following Jesus. Sort of. I was committed, but I kept turning back. I did not follow the direction of the coach, of Jesus. Now, he's not calling us all to ordained ministry, but he is calling us all to some type of ministry, to share with others the love of Christ that we experience in our lives. Think of those times that we look back too often. It's good to know where we've been, but when we look back, we don't allow ourselves to really experience what can be in the future. The reading today, on the surface, does not sound like good news. Fire from heaven, don't bury great news. Because first of all, we are not the judge. We don't have to spend our time judging others to figure out if we can make them right with God. That is God's work. We can spend our time doing something constructive. And we don't have to worry about looking back all the time either. The future is ahead of us, and Christ will lead. Christ is calling each one of us to be his followers. And he warns that that journey will not be easy. Because look at Jesus himself. He ended up on a cross. Certainly that journey was not easy. But he promises us that each and every day is a new beginning. A time to look forward of what can be. And that Christ will lead us. And that his love will envelop the entire world.